This is the CEO forum, and we have 3 people from companies that joined our community only this year. So let's just jump straight into our business. And I'd like to ask you about the most significant characteristic of this past year, or perhaps, this recent period, whether in Israel or the world. Choose one and also tell us what the company you are each leading. Maybe you can each start with a brief introduction of your companies and how has your company dealt with this challenge. Palti, let's start with you. Shai Palti, CEO of Netline Israel. Good morning, everyone. I'm delighted to be here. Shai Palti, CEO of Netline. We printed a sticker of anti-drone, anti-UAVs. I mean, this year is the year of the UAVs, and we deal with defense in Netline and the spectrum and controlling the spectrum. I'm delighted to be here. I'm delighted that this conference also made this change towards antidote, and something major that Vered already addressed is the scale and the fact that more and more civilian technologies are entering this field, which used to be highly customized and military. Itai, I can see you. You really want to speak? Go ahead, it'll work. If not, you can grab Aviv's mic. There you go. So, hello everyone. My name is Itai Toren. I'm the CEO of Steadycopter, the only company in Israel today who deals with pilotless helicopters. And I think that what I think has the greatest impact is the war in Ukraine, the war here in Israel, that actually gives or brings up some serious challenges in the battlefield in so many parameters. And let me just mention 2 of them. One is the need for precision munitions capability from distance and unmanned without harming uninvolved individuals. And another issue is the environment, the jamming and the various disruptions and jamming of GPS and comms. And we are providing a response to both these areas, both munitions. You can see our light strike munitions outside and the heavier munitions, which are precision missiles carried on unmanned helicopters. And we provided a response to different jams, the ability to switch from GNSS to other options. Okay. Well, you already have heard from me, so you know that I'm Vered from Elbit. What we had to deal with this year is how to maintain a routine while being in war. We sell a lot worldwide, and our customers in the first few months, I have to say, were patient about the fact that we have a war in Israel, so this is why certain things are being delayed. There are certain things that Israel is now nationalizing and taking for itself before sending it abroad, but at some point our customers stopped being patient, so we're trying to maintain this routine of being an international company that needs to supply and deliver systems to its customers overseas and supporting our country. As you know, we are working 24/7 in Israel. We have or manufacture 85% of the IDF's UAVs, so it's a significant responsibility. It's mainly manifest in the fact that 90% of our operators have been drafted for military active reserve duty, so it was very difficult to prepare systems to be sent to customers and have experiment flights. And the aerial space, another thing, the aerial space in Israel has been shut down in many places, and some of our landing and takeoff areas have been shut down. So now we only have one experiment zone from which we need to launch all the experiments we need. So that was also very complicated. Hopefully the war will end and we can go back to our routine. Maybe you kind of wrap up, Yaniv. No, but before that, Ran. One strategic feature that you've noticed over the past 4 months, you've already talked about it in your talk, but something from your great familiarity and background over the years. Look, we at Uvision, one of the challenges I see is that special forces, for example, Shaldag and Maglan, and the special forces in the U.S. are first movers. They move quickly, they move fast, and they're willing to take technology and deal with it and to be agile and try it out. And the transition from special forces to the larger army, both in the Israel and in the U.S., and I truly understand how combat soldiers in Golani and the paratroopers and Givati and in the U.S. Army, they truly need this capability. Otherwise, it's, light weapons versus light weapons. And one of the challenges in the security market is to implement en masse in an army. That means to take off weight from the combat soldiers' back, to simplify the interface, etc., etc. That means to make accessible and implement and to manage to convince decision makers that the combat soldiers deserves to have a capability that differentiates him or her in the battlefield, and that requires some decisions. And if we look at what happened in the Ukraine and Russia, it's quite amazing because they're moving fast, the Ukrainians. They learn fast, they respond fast. They don't have this approach of let's see and waterfall and make requirements and it'll take 3 years, but they need to respond to Putin. It's a completely different state of mind, of decision-making, base of innovation, appearance in battlefield. And, their mindset is, okay, if we've made a mistake, we'll correct it, but let's move it. You are in the buildings mainly. How is this change in strategy being manifest for you? It's wonderful to be here. Nice to know you. My name is Aviv. I'm from Xtend, and I'd like to talk about the personal aspect. I mean, we are all CEOs and managers in companies, how to deal on a personal level. I have 3 young daughters, so it's wartime, and I need to manage a company, and all of a sudden, we're at the front of this war. It's highly challenging, and all of a sudden you discover that some of your senior managers and entire teams are not there because they've been drafted for active reserve duty. It's so difficult to deal with it. You don't want to, and you cannot replace these people. You need other people from the company to replace them. So that's such a crazy challenge. Another thing related to what Ron said, the requirements are changing on a daily basis. If we thought that we knew what we were doing, what we're selling, and what the customer wants, we didn't know what we want. And even today, we're developing a system that addresses a certain need, but maybe after a week, the systems would need to do something else. So you need to be very agile and know how to deal with changes. These are very interesting bottom lines. I think that as I see all 3 of us on the stage, and I'm remembering yesterday's press conference, there were 4 people, and we said, okay, this is a historic image. We don't always see these 4 individuals standing next to each other, and I think this snapshot is also a historic one of all of you together. So my next question, how do you think the Israeli UAV industry altogether, let's not call them even the industry, how all the stakeholders in the UAV industry, how do you think the stakeholders can take this field and once they leave this room, what's our duty and how can we mobilize or enlist them? If you want to answer, or we can go on the opposite order. You don't understand the question. Okay, we, as an industry, we are people who are heavily involved in this industry. We need to take the responsibility to make sure that UAVs become a growth engine in Israel, that they'll see its capabilities and invest not just from the level of the industry bottom up. In addition to the Ministry of Defense that does invest a lot, how can we throw it into an actual national growth engine with a national authority and a national program so that everything that we're saying on stage here will also be validated on the national level? Well, I would say that first of all, you need to have we need to start UAV squadrons and unmanned vehicle squadrons, and I think that we are doing what you're saying on the national level. The IDF and Mafat and Manhar are investing a lot of funds, knowing that this is the future of urban combat. But let's take it another floor up. I'm challenging you. This exists. Once we have that. We have that, okay, but what about the things that don't exist? What can help us understand this additional meaning? Budgets allocated, national programs allocated, regulation. But there are many other aspects that need to be advanced on a national level. What's our responsibility and what can be done about it? Vered? I think I did talk about it when 2 years ago I talked about entering the civilian sphere, and Shmuel also mentioned it in his talk. I think the Ministry of the Economy and Ministry of Transportation could really help out. We need to get these two ministries to understand that we have developed assets here that have significant value in the civilian world and paramilitary world as well, and to advance regulation together with us so that we can turn it into reality. And by the way, the quicker we do it in Israel, we can also market it to other countries, and that's yet another growth engine for the State of Israel. It will increase our export. It's already a very significant export level military-grade UAVs, and I think that civilian UAV drones could be an amazing export branch, and I think we could leverage it more. And it will start from education to UAVs. You're already involved in various projects for educating towards UAVs, to teach UAVs in schools and universities. We can turn this country into a UAV country. I would like to approach this from the aspect of the architecture. We have 4 platform manufacturers, and I've been involved both in the fields of platforms and subsystems for platforms. I think the Israeli industries are very aggressive on the business side, even though every business presentation says open architecture to enter Ran's platform or Vered's platform. It's not easy, and I'm saying this from my experience, even though I did ultimately manage to do so. I want people to have an awareness of how easy it is to integrate systems, and it will really launch everybody to a very good place. I think it's a force multiplier both on the operational side to have more advanced and innovative capabilities, and also on the business side. It will contribute to everyone, this UAV threat. I think everyone with a technological education is thinking how to deal with this threat, and there are so many amazing ideas. The way to enter systems that are deployed today go through the big industries, the integrators, and it's a very high wall to climb. It's very difficult, and I think it's our responsibility as executives to lower these walls and make integration easier. You know what? I'd like to continue with this line of thought you've just presented, and I think that we are entering a true era, and I think that Vera also talked about it in her talk, of real collaborations. You know, I can see so many companies even here outside, and they're all trying to reinvent the wheel. They're all trying to do it on their own, and it costs a lot of money. The time to market is long, and I think that there's a lot of room for cooperation, open cooperation, and the market also wants to use best of breed, not just one closed product. And I think it has to do with the creation of an ecosystem, not to think in fixed mindset, not to think that this is a zero-sum game, that I win only if you lose. It's possible for me to win and my colleagues to win. And by the way, there's very good dialogue and conversations about cooperations, because ultimately, we need UAVs who carry inside drones to the battlefield and they can collaborate. And I don't think we should have only one company offering everything, and it's not going to happen. So, you talked about an awareness at the beginning of the morning, so we better be aware of it. And we should also have some modesty as we approached collaborations. And having mentioned modesty, let me say one last thing. I think that we have a lot to learn from each other, first of all, when we meet each other, and also, looking at what's happening in Ukraine. We should be very modest and maybe learn from what's happening there, because sometimes us Israelis, we think that we know it all. But something is happening there with innovation. I call it tactical innovation. Arrogance is the biggest sin, and that can open up an ecosystem. Would you like to add something? Just very briefly, 30 seconds from each to the people in the audience. There are a lot of young people sitting here. To be the CEO of a UAV company, it's the dream and aspiration of many people. How do you reach such a position? Not just your CV, but how? How do you get to do it? 25 years. First of all, you need to be crazy about it. I mean, really. The UAV field is one of the most amazing fields because it combines a lot of technologies and it's constantly renewing itself. So first of all, you need to really know your stuff. You need to understand what you're doing. In my case, I grew from the bottom up. I started out as an engineer, but it doesn't necessarily have to be the track. You can come from an operations position, and you need to really know your stuff. You need to be determined, to be attentive. You need to have a very big systemic view, because ultimately this is a system of systems. You need to understand how it all works and how it works with the entire ecosystem of companies and collaborations. I think that if you have these characteristics, it'll take you there. I agree with every word Vered said. Vered and I, we kind of grew up together early on in this field, and then our ways parted. But the two strongest keys, or maybe the three strongest keys, first of all, hard work. It's hard. This entire field, it's hard. It's complicated. There are a lot of complexities and a lot of work for long hours, long days in the field, in the office, overseas, in Israel. Not easy, not simple at all. That's one aspect. Another aspect, to be good at what you're doing, because without that, you won't get too far. And the third thing is not to forget the entire personal and interpersonal aspect. Being a CEO before even the professional side of it, it means to manage people and to mobilize people to make sure that they're on the same page and following you. And you need to be made out of that material. Otherwise, you can't be a CEO. Well, I'm the startup professional here in this panel. It's my fourth startup. So if I were to choose one tip, and it's related to what was said in the previous talk, to never stop dreaming, not as a cliche, but if you know what your dream is, everybody will tell you that it won't work and that it's wrong. Everybody's going to try and stop you along the way and tell you that they're better and tell you that Google can do it better than you. But as long as you're ignoring all these comments and you're rushing ahead, you'll reach your goal. So that's my tip. My tip is curiosity, to ask a lot of questions, to be professional, ultimately professionalism, to be very thorough. And the most important thing is to believe in human beings, to believe in people, to mobilize them, to connect them to the larger goal, and to fulfill it together. Following what Ran said directly, to be excited about what you're doing. You can't fake it. You can't fake it with your employees. You can't fake it with your customers. And if you get up in the morning and you don't go to work with joy, then you're not in the right place. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for this lovely panel, and we're going to continue.